Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today a detailed forecast update coming your way. We're going to start things off over in New South Wales, where a powerful low pressure system is bringing severe weather to the coastline. We're also going to be talking about some rainfall over in Western Australia, and we'll also go up to far north Queensland and talk about some storms up there. But like I said, starting things off over in New South Wales this morning. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. Your support is greatly appreciated. New South Wales is being dominated by a low pressure system offshore in the Tasman Sea right now, and this low pressure system is quite strong. It's got a pressure in the 990s. It's certainly one of the stronger ones to be in the Tasman Sea in the last in the last month or so. So it certainly has some intensity behind it, and it is firing off a massive swathe of southerly and southeasterly winds towards the New South Wales, Victoria, and even Tasmanian coastline, nestled between this high pressure system and New Zealand. And these winds here are picking up some pretty large seas, and as such, a severe weather warning for abnormally high seas and whatnot is extending all up the New South Wales coastline between Mallacoota and Victoria, right up towards Coffs Harbour in the northern parts of New South Wales. Now, the wind observations don't look too gnarly on this map here. However, they are certainly starting to gust up very high along the coastline. Keep in mind, this is only a coastal situation here. This certainly isn't, once you get further inland, the winds are going to be really gnarly, and you can see here gusts aren't actually that high across the major population centres such as Wollongong, Sydney, and even up towards Newcastle as well, but still some strong wind gusts are being reported over into the ocean, and these strong wind gusts here approaching 70 to 80 kilometres an hour are not only making boating and fishing and surfing conditions very hazardous for the New South Wales coastline, but they're also whipping up some pretty big waves, and by pretty big waves I mean huge waves here. This giant low pressure system over in the Tasman Sea is picking up waves up towards 7 metres, not too far offshore from the New South Wales coastline. Lord Howe Island being absolutely pummeled from the south with winds of 6 metres, with waves of 6 metres as well. The biggest waves in this low pressure area around 7 to 8 metres high, around that 7.5 metre high mark, and the waves along the New South Wales coastline are up towards Coffs Harbour around 5 metres, and then down towards Bega and Mallacoota are a little bit smaller at around 4.5 metres, but still very high indeed. And you can see massive waves coming ashore around Newcastle and Taree right now, and even down towards Sydney and the coastal exposed areas of Sydney. Huge surf expected throughout the course of today, with waves between 4 and 6 metres, maybe big sets up towards 7 or 8 metres. This really is some big wave activity that's coming through, and I've seen some YouTube videos of the surf and so forth breaking very far out to sea. It is very concerning to see, that's for sure, and if you are considering fishing or boating in weather conditions like this, I mean, you'd be pretty silly too, but I strongly advise you that you stay out of the water, and that includes rivers and dams as well. Stay out of them, because these waves and winds are very strong indeed. Certainly no consideration needs to be taken to go out into the ocean as well today. It is very dangerous indeed, and you must be staying safe in a weather event like this. The smaller situation is a couple of showers moving along the coastline. That means that there could be a little bit of rainfall for locations between Sydney and Taree today. A few drops, we're not expecting more than a couple of millimetres there, but some heavy showers are kind of swinging themselves around the coastline here, and you can see it on the radar loop. Nothing too crazy. A few spots of moderate to heavy rainfall swinging up towards the Wollongong, Sydney, Newcastle sort of area, but again, like I said, nothing heavy and nothing to concern about. Just might make the weather today a little bit more unpleasant. Now, we're going to keep things on New South Wales, Victoria, and Tasmania as well, because we've got a very strong high pressure system, which you've already seen on the synoptic chart as well. You can see it here, 1,040 hectopascals over the top of Tasmania, and this is providing some brutally cold temperatures across New South Wales, Victoria, and Tasmania. And you can see it here on the chart this morning. It's kind of the last really cold day for parts of Victoria and Tasmania, but still another cold day expected for New South Wales to welcome in August. The temperatures here have sunk many degrees below the average as well. In Thredbo, they were -6 degrees last night. Cooma was a chilly -4, and there were locations in Tasmania that reported temperatures down towards -4 or -5 as well. So very cold there still, and very cold across a lot of New South Wales today and this morning. We're expecting temperatures not to rise too much today as well, so those ground temperatures are going to take their time to recover, and you can see some of the higher elevations around Orange and Bathurst and the farming communities outside of Albury and Wagga Wagga. The temperatures really struggling to get out of double digits today, so again, those ground temperatures are going to struggle to rise, which means that tomorrow morning, when the temperatures are freezing cold once again, you're going to have to deal with some pretty nasty frost. And what are those temperatures going to be tomorrow morning? Well, in the mountainous areas, we're expecting temperatures down towards -4, -5. in fact -6, maybe -7 in one or two locations around Thredbo outside of Cooma. Canberra expected to be a little bit warmer tomorrow morning as well, but still a big swathe of very close to 0 or below 0 degree temperatures across New South Wales, and this just screams big frost day. Again, a huge swathe of these freezing temperatures often means some pretty moderate to severe frosts in some locations. So for farmers out in these agricultural communities, just make sure you are taking necessary precautions to mitigate the risks of these pretty significant frosts that are expected. Again, I think today was the worst frost morning that you will get. There will be locations colder tomorrow, but I don't think the frosts will be as severe, considering there could be a little bit of wind around and maybe a little bit less air pressure to keep those temperatures as cold and as still that's necessary for those significant frosts. But again, just make sure you are taking necessary precautions to mitigate those risks of significant frosts. The cold area is going to contract to the mountains tomorrow morning, or Friday morning I should be saying, not quite tomorrow yet, bring on the weekend. It's going to be very cold across the mountains, that's for sure, but slightly warmer across the agricultural parts of New South Wales. Still below 0 for some locations and very close to 0 for a lot of other locations, but not as cold as what we have seen this week. And then come this weekend, the temperatures will be a lot more milder across New South Wales and Victoria, closer to average at around that 4, 5, 6 or 7 degree mark. So that is a return to normality by the looks of things on Saturday, and then into this weekend as well, a continuance to the return of normality. It's very typical for this time of the year, these temperatures. I mean, the average minimum temperature in a lot of these places is only 3 or 4 degrees overnight, so it still gets very cold there. But when you're talking about a couple of days of -1 or -2 for these locations, consecutive days of that, and the ground temperatures remaining very low throughout the day, it does create a bit of a concern for frost. And there were frost warnings last night, and I do imagine that they will be issued tonight. So like I said, just make sure you are staying safe and take necessary precautions against these frosts. Now we're going to move over to Western Australia. It's not so much the cold that we're worried about over there, it is the rainfall. We've got a big cold front that's going to be moving throughout the course of today and into tonight. It's certainly got a punch to it, that's for sure. You can see it here on the satellite imagery. Well, not quite yet. This one here doesn't look that strong, but it's firing up some powerful thunderstorms already. And this cold front here, mark my words, is going to be packing a significant punch tonight. So Perth residents, make sure you are ready for some significant storm activity throughout the course of tonight. You can't see it on the radar imagery right now. There are a few showers and storms around, but you can see it on the rain forecast here. This is simulated radar activity for the Perth area and the southwest of Western Australia throughout the course of tonight, and you can see that these conditions are going to rapidly deteriorate from around lunchtime today for the Perth area. Ahead of this thunderstorm, there's going to be ahead of this cold front, rather, there's going to be a huge swathe of very unstable and moist air, which means thunderstorms are possible throughout the wheat belt. Some of them could actually go severe throughout the course of tonight, and where I'm talking about is around that Merredin, sort of Darwin area. You can see it here on the forecast here. Some thunderstorms are expected to be firing up, and this is not a model glitch here. I do actually expect there to be areas of thunderstorm activity ahead of this cold front sometime this afternoon throughout the wheat belt, and even up into the northern parts of the wheat belt as well, including locations north of Perth along the coastline. I'm also expecting this cold front to fire up a significant band of thunderstorms once it hits at around 7 or 8 p.m. tonight, and I do reckon that some of those thunderstorms could go severe. There is a severe weather warning in for heavy rainfall and damaging winds. We're expecting rainfall to stick around for at least 6 hours or so for some locations in the southwest, between Perth down towards about Walpole. Anywhere along the coastline there is expecting some long forms of rainfall. We're expecting rainfall to be pretty consistent over a 5 or 6 hour period, and accumulations could amount up to 75 millimeters. The Bureau of Meteorology hasn't specified exactly how much rainfall they are expecting from this cold front, which is a completely valid forecast, considering this is a very uncertain forecast to be making, because we are talking about some potentially severe thunderstorms. But I'm estimating around the Perth metro area 40 millimeters tonight, isolated pockets in the north and the east up towards 50 millimeters. The southern suburbs will be around that 45 to 50 millimeter mark, with some pockets up towards 60 or 65 millimeters. I'm also expecting some pockets up to 75 millimeters between Dwelling Up and Harvey, and some pockets as well, 75 millimeters along the south coast. But again, they're going to be pretty hit and miss for rainfall along the south coast. Anywhere between Augusta and sort of Albany is going to kind of miss out of the worst of the rainfall, so I don't expect accumulations to be too high there, but still some strong thunderstorms going to be moving in as far north as Jurien Bay. And like I said, I'd be shocked yesterday. I said I'd be shocked if Jurien Bay didn't pick up 30 millimeters tonight from this cold front, which is some pretty heavy rainfall for them. Also, light to moderate falls expected to be making it far out into the wheat belt, even into the Murchison and the Gold goldfields to out towards the line between Mount Magnet and over to Kalgoorlie, including locations such as Paynes Fine, and then out towards Lanista and Wiluna as well, expecting a couple of showers from this cold front sometime tomorrow morning or early afternoon. The rainfall won't be too heavy out in the goldfields or into the Murchison, but still expecting a few drops of rainfall, which could amount to a couple of millimetres there. Much needed and very welcome rainfall, so they will accept that with open arms. But the bulk of the rainfall, of course, is going to be hanging around the southwest, and it will continue throughout Thursday and into early Friday morning, when those showers and storms are going to ease out of the Perth coastal regions on Thursday night, and then Friday morning along the south coastal regions. Now, how much rainfall, I hear you ask? Well, the bulk of the rainfall, like I said, is going to be happening along the southwest. Some heavy stuff is expected. Not too much of a change from yesterday's forecast, but still, we will go over it in great detail. Lancelin and Jurien Bay expecting about 30 millimetres of the stuff. I do reckon the Perth rainfall estimate is on the lower side here. 20 millimetres is probably the minimum amount of rainfall that the Perth metro area will receive tonight. Again, with thunderstorms, the forecast is very unpredictable and very hard to make. The hills are a bit more valid at around that 35 millimetre mark, but like I said, the bulk of the rainfall, 50 to 75 millimetres of the stuff happening around the southwest capes and along the south coastal areas. So again, some very good rainfall there. We're not expecting it to penetrate too far into the wheat belt. You can see it kind of stops along the Darling Range here, and areas along the southwest and the Albany Highway, that sort of region, do get around 15 to 20 millimetres of stuff, but again, really not that healthy once you get further out past Southwestern Highway. Lake Grace a couple of millimetres, and then other communities such as Corrigan or Southern Cross really not expecting too much rainfall, and it's going to be pretty hit and miss, especially from thunderstorms this afternoon. The thunderstorm activity will be very hit and miss and very unpredictable, so if you do live out in the central to the eastern parts of the wheat belt, watch the radar very closely, because we could be seeing some thunderstorms fire up tonight, and it will be very interesting indeed. And if I was given a bit more notice for them, I would consider going out and chasing them. That would make for a very interesting video indeed, but I might end up just chasing the front that we get tonight. In terms of other rainfall around the state, really not much to be talking about. There is a little bit up in the north. Again, I'm not sure where this is coming from. It's a bit of a hokey-pokey low pressure system for Friday. Again, not too much worth discussing. A few showers in the northern parts of Western Australia and the Pilbara and into the southern parts of the Kimberley. It will be interesting to see what actually happens there, but I'm not going to give it time of day because it isn't too much rainfall, and it is fairly typical from a cold front like this to drag in a bit of moisture that equates to some rainfall. We'll keep it on the southwest. You can see 10-day accumulation still sky high across the southwest, and that's because more cold front activity. We do get under the influence of a high pressure system, or a high pressure ridge, actually on Saturday and Sunday. A little bit of dry weather this weekend to start off the first weekend of August. The dry weather does continue until about Tuesday afternoon on the 6th of August, when another cold front sweeps up from the south and brings another, what looks to be about 15 millimetres to the Perth metro area. A few showers behind it as well, and these showers continuing through Wednesday and into Thursday. That will equate to 30 millimetres of rainfall as well, before another high pressure ridge comes in on Thursday and Friday to keep things nice and dry for the next fortnight's weekend on the 10th and 11th of August. So again, looking like a pretty good run of weekends, 2 dry weekends in a row for the southwest of Western Australia, all powered by these high pressure ridges that are coming through at a very convenient time. But still some more cold front activity to the middle parts of next week, so we will keep a very close eye on that. It is going to equate to more rainfall for the southwest of Western Australia, and you can see peak accumulations up to 100 millimetres along the Darling Range, and then along the south coast about 120 millimetres as peak accumulations. Perth expecting about 50 to 60 millimetres over the next 10 days. Like I said, about 30 of that coming through tonight, potentially up to 40, and then another 30 of that coming through on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, next week's rainfall event. But after this system here, after about Thursday night, it is going to be pretty dry for a couple of days for the Perth metro area and a lot of the southwest as a whole, apart from the coastal regions between sort of Cape Naturalist down towards Albany to Ballparker region. It will be relatively dry across the state, so looking absolutely fantastic to get a bit of outdoor activities in, that's for sure. Now, we're not done with the rainfall yet for this video. We've got to go up to far north Queensland. It's been a bit of a pest to forecast over the last couple of weeks, and we're going to have to keep forecasting it, but still more rainfall streaming in. It's just that sort of stuff, 20 millimetres a day, that we're going to have to keep a very close eye on, and it looks like accumulations are amounting up towards 110 millimetres or so over the next 10 days. Now again, that wouldn't be enough to flood a drain pipe up in far north Queensland, but still, considering the amount of rainfall that is possible on some of these days where we're talking about 20 millimetres potentially streaming in here and there, it is worth the talk. You can see not too much on the rain radar right now. There is a few showers expected throughout the course of today. Again, nothing serious, and the rainfall will pipe up again tonight and into tomorrow morning. We are expecting potentially 30 millimetres tonight into tomorrow morning, and I wouldn't be surprised if we woke to accumulations storms around 30 to 40 millimeters in parts of far north Queensland. Once again, not enough rainfall to flood any rivers or any dams or anything, but once you start adding this rainfall up, 20 millimeters today, 20 millimeters tomorrow, 20 millimeters Friday, then another 20 millimeters on Saturday and Sunday to really equate to this 100 millimeters over the next 3 or 4 days, it does add up pretty rapidly. And this is what does cause some of the minor flooding that catches people off guard, especially in some of the drier locations in far north Queensland. So it is always worth a forecast up here to talk about the rainfall that could be streaming in. Again, it's the most unpredictable weather in the nation up here. The rainfall, very hard to predict as always, and it's shown by the rainfall range that the Bureau of Meteorology gives in their forecast, between 0 and 20 millimeters for all of these days for Innisfail. It's a very difficult forecast to make, and I don't blame them for giving such a wide scope of uncertainty in terms of rainfall. And when that 20 millimeters does come, it can come very quickly and cause minor flooding in already flowing rivers or already flowing catchments. So some good rainfall expected over the next 5 days and even over the next 10 days as well. So we will keep a very close eye on things up in far north Queensland. Not too much expected for Cairns, only a couple of millimeters there. Townsville staying high and dry as usual, and the central Queensland coast expecting a few drops of rainfall, the majority of that coming through in the 5 to 10 day forecast period from an onshore flow that's expected to pipe up towards the middle parts of next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. A few drops of rainfall expected in the central parts of Queensland. Again, we're going to be having to talk about Queensland's weather a lot more over the coming couple of months. So spring is thunderstorm season, and spring is only a month away now, so we're going to be keeping a very close eye on the weather forecast for Queensland. If you are from Queensland, you've been feeling a bit left out or unsure of whether or not to unsubscribe, and I can't blame you if you do want to unsubscribe, because there's nothing to talk about over the last couple of months. However, I do recommend sticking around because the weather is about to turn up for the interesting very, very soon, and I do really look forward to covering it. I will be covering it in great detail every day and every time it is necessary to talk about storms and rain and even cyclones in Queensland. I'm very excited for it. And for Australia as a whole, the northern parts of the state, the entire northern half between Western Australia and the Northern Territory and Queensland, I've spent no time talking about you guys, and I do feel like you feel a lot left out regarding these weather forecasts. But I do promise you, once these storms fire up and the cold fronts move south, there will be plenty to talk about, and you guys will be the main focus once again. But that is all for me today. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have watched to this point, please do leave a like on it, and also subscribe if you haven't already. Your support is greatly appreciated. Special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now, and I could not run this show without them. So once again, thank you so much for their support. That is all for me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.